okay, I don't know how parents are going to take this because of all the
Right.
stereotypes and all the stigma that's attached to seeking help when it comes to the mind. They are not always right. They are also parenting is also something that you're winging it. That's how I see it. Okay, because
Yeah.
you have learned something from your parents. There's a reason why we call it primary caregiver. The way they care for the child, the way they comfort the kid, the way they provide for the kid. I read somewhere that every emotion has a shelf life of 9 minutes. So I'll tell you something that I do with my clients. Same thing, worrying, constantly worrying, and that worrying consumes you.
Welcome to Masters Decoded Season 4.
What was your wake up call? What got you to all of this?
Honestly,
How do you overcome self-doubt?
so first and foremost,
How do you do that emotional quotient? How do you bring that up? My next guest on today's podcast is Nicole Menezes. Nicole is a sports psychiatrist and an amazing individual who has some amazing perspectives about how we should treat our children, and more importantly, how, if we are sports parents, what is our role in the entire sports process and what we should and shouldn't be doing. There are some great analogies which we've been able to uncover in sports and in home life. So without much further ado, let me get on with it.
Hi, Nicole. Welcome to Masters Decoded Season 4 podcast. Really glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Anis, for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And when I looked up your LinkedIn profile, I was pretty pleased at a young age you're doing a major impact in the world of sports. So that's my first point. Like, how did sports attract you and why build a career in sports?
Thank you for asking me that. So it's a little different with me. I used to play badminton when I was younger in school, but academics took over. But I come from a sporting family with my father, who's played for the country football and played
Oh,
national,
nice.
internationally, and as a goalkeeper. And I have my sister who's also played at a national level tennis, and she's coached. Now she's completed her master's in psychology also, and she too plans to help in the field. So, to be honest, I have played the role of a support system, and I can say, vicariously experienced the challenges of an athlete, been there through the ups and downs, seen organizational stressors, how they impact your mental health, overall performance, and actually experienced that in that environment. So my interest in psychology was there since before, but that time we did not have this field of sports psychology come up in India anywhere. Like it was not even something
Right.
new. Barely people had any kind of idea that okay, you need to even train your mind. If you're playing sport and if you're talking about performance, we were there. Uh, and yeah, the interest peaked over there, saying that okay, if n- non-sport people can reach out for help, where's the access to athletes? So it started with that curiosity, and I had a lot of encouragement from my father to explore this niche field without knowing whether a career would be possible or no. And it started with that. It started with interning. It started with me continuing my education and exploring opportunities, trying to reach out to people who are already doing something similar, which were very handful. And just understanding, is this something that I'm interested in? Is this something that could work out for me? And as I continued my education, I was working side by side, took a year's break to explore. So that 1 year, I actually went out to almost all academies in Mumbai, trying to create awareness with respect to, okay, listen, this is how the mind works, and this is why you need to train, and do a lot of workshops to educate parents, to educate athletes, and coaches. And that's when I realized that okay, awareness is lacking. People need help. People need the support, and it could benefit them. But there is demand, but there is just no awareness. And that's when I felt okay, it's time for me to do a specialized degree, and that's where I went to London, studied for a year, and came back with all that wealth of knowledge and learning that I had from there, and started practicing in India to help the athletes of our country.
Wow. Now, you mentioned you took a break and you interned, right? Where all did you do the internship? Because that's unheard of, especially in an Indian context, somebody who's studying and, then taking a break.
Hmm.
Because taking a break in an education setup is difficult because, the education system looks down upon you, then the society looks down upon you. So, where did that internship work out from?
I wouldn't say it was a problem per se for me or the society looked down upon me. I don't think I experienced any of that. So I completed my master's in applied psychology from Mumbai University, and while I was doing that, I had looked up psychologists who are now senior psychologists in the field also and practicing. And we barely had age difference of say a few years, 2 3 years of age difference. So they had freshly studied and come back, and they were working and practicing. So reaching out to them again, like when you're that curious, you find these people, you go on LinkedIn, you
Right.
learn from what they're doing, and you just, and sport is a very, I feel, small industry, and if you kind of know of people through and through your network, so you reach out to people. So I did reach out to a few of them, and yeah, I took my year's break, and while actually I was interning with them during my masters, and then after masters I was like, okay,
Okay.
let's see what does this look like for me if I have to go out there, because you need practice also to put yourself out there and have a conversation with people. So I did that, and I I got great response, to be honest. Like, I too had my biases with, okay, I don't know how parents are going to take this because of all the
Right.
stereotypes and all the stigma that's attached to seeking help when it comes to the
Mental
mind. Yes, when it comes to the mind, or
health.
even seeking help to enhance your performance because your mind is involved. Am I not doing enough?
Yeah.
There's something up with my mindset that I need help. To overcome all those conversations, and to help people become curious about the subject was something that I enjoyed as a part of my process of exploring the field in India with the Indian context. So that was good, and I think it helped me and gave me a lot of context when I went further to do my second master's, specifically in sport and exercise psychology in London. It gave me so much context because I already had so many experiences to use as cases while I was exploring different theories, while I was learning different things, and understanding different concepts specifically about sport. Uh, it helped me, I could say. So I wouldn't say that one year, anyone looked down upon. I think when I went there, it was really appreciated that you had that experience, you went out there, you went out to understand what
Nice.
people are like, so that helped.
So you spoke about the need to go out to study further, right? And I feel that today India doesn't have, like you said, the sports community is small, but at the same time, sports education is fairly small, right? People think about sports education, oh, you will turn into an athlete, but
Hmm.
there's so much now happening in sports science, whether it's sports psychology, sports analytics, and many more such things, right? So, do you think that the infrastructure is adequate in India today from a sports science perspective?
I think we are growing. I think it's a great start. Right now, we have programs and courses that uh, have started off in our country, because I think this has been a great gap, big, huge gap and challenge, because not everyone can afford and go outside, get that education, and do something with it.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's a great initiative from people in our country, or the ones who have gone out there and come back to be like, hey, we need to create something for our students. And it's not fair that just because we do not have enough experts in the field, that we constantly need to outsource it and constantly need to go outside the country, deal with the other challenges that come along with just keeping up
Very
with
true.
a new education system. So I think we have started, and we are growing from here. And to just see the response that you get from programs like this, where there are so many students, the room is it's not an empty classroom, it's a full classroom. So it speaks a lot about the interest that students have about the subject, the curiosity as to, okay, I'm going to get to impact an athlete's life, just that curiosity as to how I'm going to go about doing that, I'm going to learn about it. That itself is encouraging young students to explore the field. And I'm
Hmm.
glad we have begun, and I think we have a long way to go, but it's a great start.
Building on what you just said earlier, right? Convincing parents, because
Hmm.
it's difficult to go ahead and discuss about mental health, right? It still is a stigma in India,
Yeah.
and still has a long way to go about in accepting it and having those discussions. When you were going around for a year and having a conversation with potential athletes and potential parents of athletes, uh, what were the hurdles did you face during that time, during those conversations, about what are they seeing, what are they not seeing, what are the blind spots they have as parents or as athletes? What were those discoveries you had during that time?
Um, it was it was an interesting experience because parents come as a support system. They play the
Right.
role of being that cheerleader, being that supporter for their kids. But what happens is, because they are so involved in the sport along with their child, uh, the child becomes an extension to them, and
Hmm.
they are not
Interesting.
able to distance this their child's experience from theirs. Somewhere it's attached to them. So a child's loss, say if you're playing a match and you've lost, it's like, okay, what happened, like, why couldn't you, it was such an easy shot, how could you miss it, or trying to give a silent treatment to kind of teach a lesson or to punish a child. They don't realize on how that actually impacts negatively, and they actually don't understand. They feel they're supporting the child or not giving enough space to the child once there's a loss, once the child has lost a match, or not having the right words to encourage the child. uh, it all of that matters. Or sometimes the parents take the role of the coach, and the coach tends to feel helpless if you don't have a coach who's assertive enough, who is commanding enough, in their nature, or plays that role. There are parents who can take that role also and have the coach to just watch that, okay,
Yeah.
what's happening, so because no one wants their
Hmm.
kid to be benched in football. No one wants a kid to be benched. मेरे बच्चे को खिलवाओ, like, play my kid, like, what is wrong with you?
Right.
Or the conversation goes back home with, okay, why didn't your coach play you? Why weren't you playing well? What happened? You should go and tell your coach that, play me more. So it kind of messes with a lot of aspects when you're talking in say a practice session. Maybe the child is thinking something else, so it kind of interferes at times. So educating parents to help them understand ki, okay, if this is the way you approach the situation, there's a high chance that this is going to be the consequence. So if I'm going to give a silent treatment to my
Right.
kid, and if my kid is focused on my expressions, which are not very encouraging but which are very disappointing while she's playing, say, a tennis match, uh, she's going to be very keen to just seek some kind of approval after the match, so that my mother, at least, like, to just know whether my mom is disappointed in me or no, or whether my dad is disappointed in me or no. And that silent treatment is not going to help. Tomorrow the kid is not going to go on the court with the attitude that, okay, I have to give my best, I'm going to play my best, but it's going to be like, okay, I don't want to disappoint my mom. Okay, I don't want to feel rejected by my mom. And
Hmm.
that completely shifts the focus from what they're supposed to be doing on the court. So educating parents on their parenting style, understanding the environment at home, just helping them be a part of the team that we all are, the coach, the physio, the psychologist, the fitness trainer, helping them, involving them, because sometimes a parent can communicate better to a kid than what a coach can on some aspects, maybe on the
Agreed.
emotional front. So,
Yeah.
how can we understand each other's strengths, observe better, learn better, and help the kid at the end of the day, help that athlete to get the best out of that athlete? And that becomes important. In isolation, when we try to work, everyone's doing their own thing. There's resistance in accepting what the other person is trying to say because you feel you're entering my boundary. But how can we work together is something that we're still learning, I think. That's something, but definitely educating parents helps, and the hurdles that come with it are, I think, interesting to explore also as a psychologist.
So Nicole, you spoke about these challenges, right? Right now, as parents interfere too much, right? And we've seen these in movies, in international movies. We've not seen so much sports movies yet to kind of understand the gravity of these issues. Today, media becomes a very interesting piece. Uh, but what, as a parent, even I have young children. Some are showing interest in sports, some are showing interest in other types of activities, right? And it need not be sports. There are a lot of parallels which we can draw, right? Like, let's say if my niece wants to be a doctor, or my son wants to be a biotech engineer, you know how, as a parent, should I play as a role of a coach of sorts, right, rather than being an extension? Sometimes I think I really like the word extension, right? We become an extension, or a child becomes an extension to what they're doing. Sometimes, when you were saying that, I was saying, holy shit, I'm doing that to my child as well. That today, when he's thinking about his biotech engineering, I am forcing him, and I'm becoming an extension to him, right? Or he becoming an extension to me. So how, as a parent, we, as grown-ups, need to kind of take a step back, rather than keep getting involved, right? And what is that fine line where we don't cross over? Meaning, I think that's what I'm trying to get at.
I think, firstly, to begin with, it's about noticing that you're doing something like that. I think that awareness, because when we are
Hmm.
so emotionally fused in a situation, it becomes difficult for us to become aware that, hey, I'm doing something like that, or acknowledging that, okay, this is not helping the situation at the end. My son is irritated because I'm probably nagging behind something. I think noticing is the number one thing, because I think your child's reaction is going to give you that answer. So
Very interesting.
observing
What kind
when
of
that
reactions? Sorry, what kind of reactions?
just throwing a fit, maybe the child is like, okay, get off me, like, why are you behind me? Or like, why is this such a big deal? Or sometimes kids can't even express that. Sometimes they just shut down, they don't say anything, or they just close themselves in the room to have that time out, that I'm done for a while, like, give me a break. So I think noticing these responses from your child, and then acknowledging or even letting them know that, hey, I think probably I said a lot maybe to you, maybe let's sit and talk. Just having a conversation, to learning, okay, why are they interested in a particular field, what piqued their interest. Because if we remove the curiosity aspect only, then nothing is left. You're just like a, say, like a robot, just doing things because you're asked to do something. So I think what parents don't understand is, they are not always right. They are also, parenting is also something that you're winging it. That's how I see it, okay? Because
Yeah.
you have learned something from your parents. Maybe there are some parts of that parenting that you don't want to bring down to your child, so you stop it. You say, okay, no, I'm not going to hit you, or I'm not going to touch you that way. But in other ways, you are
Hmm.
still continuing doing things, and you're also learning in that process, okay, what's not working, what do I need to do better. There's no manual. No one till today has made a manual as to how to parent, or the right kind of parenting. Even as professionals in the field, we can help them understand, there are different types of parenting styles because of enough research now. And you can understand, okay, if you are so authoritarian, then expect your kid to to be like this as a grown up, or as the person grows. So again, now parents are getting very woke about things. They're becoming aware. They want to have that relationship with their kids. So they are more proactive in learning more about their kid. So I think to begin with, observing how you respond, or how you are having that conversation with your kid, because that answer is going to come from the person in front of you, the way they react. Because if their
Hmm.
defenses come up, you're going to be defensive in a situation. If I'm feeling attacked, if someone's like nagging me a lot, there's going to be some reaction. I'll either shut off, or I may either just go quiet, because I'm like, okay, there's no point saying anything, I'm just going to ignore, put out a blind, like, sorry, what do you say, just stop listening to what the parent is saying. So I think, number one, observing. Second is sitting and having a conversation with your kid, to just stay curious as to where their thoughts are coming from and develop from there, because that is going to be a supportive approach towards the child. And you may learn, or the
Hmm.
child may open up themselves or their world to you in so many ways that maybe previously you didn't have that kind of access towards it. So, if a
Okay.
building on from there could be helpful. And also
You
detaching
said a
your,
nice word.
sorry, and also last point is,
No.
kind of distancing yourself from the kid, in a sense, emotionally, understanding that this is another human
Okay.
being. This person has their own emotions. This person is going to react to a situation the way they see life, not the way I see life. Though I have created this life and I can expose this person to the environments that I can, but at the end, it comes down to perception. It comes down to
Yeah.
what they interpret it to be. So, uh, distancing yourself from that aspect can be helpful, to know that, okay, this is another human being at the end. Though my kid has emotions, reacts differently, responds differently, that also is helpful.
Yeah. No, Nicole, you mentioned a very interesting, as parents, there are two things which we do, right? And it's either the first one, which I have seen, which I have also done, and I have seen my parents do. ओ हिंदी में दे से राइट हमारे ज़माने में तो ऐसा होता था हमारे ज़माने में तो हम ऐसा करते थे राइट सो वी आर ट्राइंग
Yeah.
टू replicate our childhood for them so that's one strategy or one path or the other path is we couldn't do certain things so we want our child to live through
Hmm.
that right so
Yeah.
our forcing is that and that's why that so much of attachment is there right to that child that and that's why if their loss becomes our loss right yaar tu kaisa
Hmm.
haar gaya main haar gaya right so that's what I see a lot of parents often do right these are the two things which I see now there may be more dimensions to it but these are the two dimensions I see either replicating our past or trying to live a future or a childhood which we couldn't live right and
Hmm.
unfortunately the child have to bear the brunt in both the cases
Hmm.
whether it's and both may be wrong in this situation which the child may be in uh, but just building onto what you just said further onto what you were talking about detachment but as a parent how do I still be a guide not a coach or a guide right if I still have to uh, or should I be playing that role that's the bigger question right why am I forcing myself or because if my child doesn't want me to play a coach or a guide role should I be playing that or should I if I have to play what should I do
See, as a parent, I feel one tends to wear many hats from time to time,
yeah
depending on context, depending on the situation, because at the end, you have the best interest of your kid. So, of course, your child definitely needs your guidance in a time of difficulty. Your child is going to turn back to to the parent, especially if the parent shares a great relationship with the kid. If not, then yeah, the child is going to look somewhere else for advice. Um, and there's nothing wrong with guiding, but of course, I think it's about staying curious and paying attention to the language you use when you're having a conversation with the kid. Like you very correctly said, there are times that we want to give our kids the things that maybe we never had as parents. Like when we were
Right.
during that time when we were struggling, now I have the ability to provide you with this comfort. Why not? But then with that comes the shaming also. You should feel
Yeah.
obliged to this and always grateful to this, and you cannot uh,
मेरे पास फोन नहीं था, तेरे पास फोन है, तू
हाँ
better
मैंने
take
दिया
care of that
तुमको,
phone,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
We
exactly. Yes,
yeah,
yes, and always bringing that constantly, that I've done this for you, I've done that for you. So somewhere I feel the parents also are looking for validation, and
yeah,
that privilege that comes with whatever they are able to provide to the child also comes with a little bit of shaming them or bullying them along with it. So that's something that I think uh, I get to observe pretty much. But till it's not interfering with the child and how they are figuring life out, I don't think it should matter. But also, I don't think parents should constantly question themselves with respect to, okay, is being a guide or coach to the child, can I be that or should I be that? Because you need that in the house. Who else in that
hmm,
environment, the primary caregiver is the parent. There's a reason why we call it primary caregiver. The way they care for the child, the way they comfort the kid, the way they provide for the kid actually helps in the development of the child physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially. Therefore first interaction is at home. So definitely a
yeah,
parent works as a guide, by default. If even if the parent chooses that, okay, I don't want to play the role of the coach, the child is observing the parent. You have already coached your child through your behavior, through your language in that environment without intentionally wanting to coach that child, right? So that
yeah.
happens. So you cannot, I don't think one can resign from that role of coaching or being a guide. I think it just comes as a part. The minute you become a parent, I think it just comes along with it.
So should parents get trained on being a coach or a guide, as per
I
you?
think
What do you
if
think?
if it's interfering, if it's if it's interfering with the relationship, the parent-child relationship, yes, I think it would be helpful, and
Hmm.
it has helped a lot of parents I have worked with. It has improved the relationship between the parent-child, because in sport, you always have one parent who's heavily involved, that travels with the
Yeah,
athlete, that goes along. And sometimes when you talk about father son, because of lack of
hmm,
expression, not able to emote their feelings, it can cause a gap. So how do you bridge
yeah,
that gap to have a better relationship, so that those stressors that comes from your relationship does not get leaked into your training, or does not get leaked into your performance? Your mind is not clouded with all of it. So it definitely helps,
yeah,
especially if that relationship is not the best. You do see what you say, you do see signs of it on the courts, like someone who's had a fight at home. Their attitude, especially younger kids who don't know, because no one's taught them to regulate their emotions, don't know how to be.
yeah,
There's a lot of anger on the court, or they're just not in the right space of mind to concentrate or practice. And then you get a good mouthful from your coach too, so you're not actually having a great day. So
yeah.
definitely it can help. If it's affecting your relationship, I think one must seek help.
No, building onto what you just said, and I want to switch gears a little bit to a different side, which is the player or the kid
Hmm.
or the athlete itself, right? Uh, and I was just thinking, like, how things transient into the life of an athlete on the court, right? Uh, I play some bit of sports. I don't play enough. I'm at that age also. I don't play enough, right? I should be. I'm not saying age should be a determinant of playing or not playing, but like today when I play cricket with my kids, I get into the game, right?
Hmm.
I really am concentrated. I've left everything and I'm just into the game. But a professional athlete, now I'm playing as a fun activity, right? So I can afford to be in that zone for 2 hours, let's say, or 1.5 or 1 hour. But a professional athlete whose job literally is just playing that sport every day, right? And when I draw parallels to professionals like us who are working, we often bring our personal life to work and vice versa, right? So if I've had a bad morning with my family or how I started my day, I would have a bad day at work as well, right? My mind will be off and all of that. Now, as a psychological coach, how do you train athletes? And I want to dabble into that because we as professionals also can learn, but how can we switch on and switch off, right? Into a zone which only focuses on that activity or that time which you're dedicating to that piece. So, how do you train people to let go of what's happening in their past life or in their personal life and concentrate on that game or that 2 hours or 90 minutes which they have to spend on the court or on the field?
Like you correctly said, I think it's very easy for things to just leak into the next space that you're about to enter into, right? I think when you're talking about athletes, specifically helping them look at what goals they have set becomes really helpful. You know, what's the goal for today's session, or what's your long term goal, say, that we have discussed? You know, based on that, we are
Hmm.
having our steps to that's going to help us achieve. And your today's practice session is one step. So, what do you choose? Do you choose to stay back, or do you choose to move forward? I think having that conversation or challenging that thought, or uh, teaching them certain techniques when it comes to regulating feelings, maybe that person just needs a space to just vent in that moment. Provide that
Hmm.
space to vent. Some have some may feel that, okay, writing, journaling is something that's really helpful, that will process my thoughts. Journal about your problems. There's nothing wrong with that, because when you write, the processing starts working in the mind. You start processing as to
Right.
why, how it's happened. But when you're talking about someone who's just left home, who's had a bad say a fight or argument, whatever it may be, and has entered the court, sometimes you don't need to do anything. The sport is fun enough for you to forget everything. Sometimes it's the environment around, sometimes it's you interacting with other people. The other people's energy is contagious, so that helps too. But if
Hmm.
none of that works, I think you need to get your eyes on what's your goal. Okay, what is my intention for today's practice? Which is why I try to set intentions with my athletes and make that a practice for their training sessions regularly. You enter the court, you enter the field, what is your intention for today? But because if you go without any intention, then there's no purpose, right? I'm just listening to what the coach
Yeah.
is saying, and I'm doing whatever is asked out of me or is demanded out of me. What am I demanding out of myself today? What is my purpose today? What do I intend? What is important for me today to do in today's practice sessions? What do I want to practice more today? So having that goal, setting that goal, kind of gets them into focusing just on that, just narrows their focus to that, and moving one step forward towards it. So having a goal that is important, having a goal, or
Hmm.
having a goal that is aligned with your values, things that matter to you, becomes really helpful.
Right.
Which is why setting intention becomes really helpful. So that is something that can be practiced. And of course, you train your mind to compartmentalize also, on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, how
Right.
difficult is this issue right now? Can I address it later, or does it need to be addressed right now? How problematic is this?
Hmm.
So helping them, even understanding the intensity of it, and then putting it in a compartment ki ye hone ke baad I will go and address it, it's affecting me so much. So training your mind on different things and practicing that will definitely help you to to separate situations and to put your attention and energy to things that actually matter in that moment, in that situation for you.
Yeah. So Nicole, monkey, I call our brains are monkey minds, right? That monkey doesn't want to stop jumping around, right? Even if we try to tame it as much as possible. Now, there may be a situation that we have suppressed those thoughts, right? Which is prior to me getting onto the field. And there can be a moment, especially in uh, not combative sports, but tactical sports like football or any of the way where you are going to be coming up across your opposition close to each other, right? And in that friction of time, that suppression which was there kind of aggravates and pushes that emotions which were hidden or you had left off the field kind of come and overtake you as a person, and the mind kind of starts playing those dirty tricks, and in that heat of moment the emotions kind of burst in a very different level, right? And it does happen. We've seen that happening more of the time, right? You find out like why did it happen, and some of the professional and really good athletes don't, they know how to tame themselves. But you're dealing with children, you're dealing with under 17 clubs, right? A lot of them who are still learning how to manage that. How is there a practice, like I have seen, like we've seen Steve Jobs, before he went and he gave a speech, he used to cry a lot, right? So he kind of emotionally he's light, right? A lot of people have these practice, like they'll do these haka, which we have seen in
Yeah.
uh, you know rugby, where people will let that anger and that rage come out, right? There are a lot of these practices. Are there such practices? And the reason why I'm asking you again, when we are at work, is it start of the day we should be doing haka every day just to let that emotions and
Yes.
energy go out, right?
Yes.
So that we are in that zone now, okay, we are here now. So are there those practices there which you have your I'm saying your children, but the kids whom you work with deal with on a day to day?
See, Anis, one thing we need to also remember and understand and actually absorb this fact is that whatever we resist persists.
Yeah.
Okay. So the more I'm going to resist to not let my emotions come out, or the more I'm avoiding it, or the more I'm pushing it down, it's going to come out at a time and space when I'm not ready to handle it.
Yeah.
So stop avoiding. Number one, start
Nice.
addressing, stop avoiding. And we use different therapies, okay, as a part of our work. And one is ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy. And in that, what the logic of the therapy is that you don't fight your emotions, you just let them pass, because the storm has to pass at some point. And what we as human beings find the most difficult thing to do is to stay still in an uncomfortable situation, because the emotions are bubbling up and I'm like, I have to do something about it right now. Maybe you don't. It's bubbling up right now. It's an emotion. It has a window, period. It will leave you. So, in this therapy, what we train people to do is we tell them, okay, the idea is your mind has to play like the sky. Your mind is the sky. And like the sky has many weathers, your every emotion is like a weather. No weather is going to stay beyond its time. Your rainy season is going to come and go, the storm is going to come and go, the sun is going to come and go. It is going to leave you. But yes, in that moment it's going to be difficult. So can we learn to sit with difficult emotions, because they are going to pass? Because the more
Right.
you fight with it, the more you're going to get fused into it, the more you're going to let that narrative rule whatever you're going to do. So, do you need to stay fused and let that narrative? Because then the monkey is playing.
Yeah.
Then the constant worrying is happening. Then the constant rumination is happening, right? And if I need to, and there's a reason why you choose to stay in that situation, even after knowing I'm suffering, like I'm not able to get out of this thought process, because there are benefits to even staying in that situation.
Yeah.
The benefit may be that constantly you're anticipating the worst case scenario and your brain is preparing you for that.
Right.
That's a pro. That's something that's actually helping you in that situation. right? Which is why you're staying in it. So, learning to diffuse, learning to detach yourself, learning to just look at it for what it is without any bias. Yeah, I am upset right now. Labeling it, noticing it, labeling it is enough to begin with in order for regulation. If I'm not able to recognize or let my emotional brain or validate, or not even validate, just recognize that, okay, this emotion has popped up and label it, the emotional brain is not going to let the rational brain have any conversation to problem solve that situation. And to be honest, our rational brain, which gives us logic, which helps us problem solve, which helps us make decisions even under pressure, is not as evolved as our emotional brain. We're talking about something that's been primitive during the caveman times, to protect yourself from the wild. That threat system is way stronger, and it's going to overpower every other system that we have.
Right.
So for it to not have that power on you, first you need to recognize ki, oh, the emotional brain is activated, the threat system is activated, which is why I'm worrying so much. So recognizing that awareness is developed through the practice of mindfulness also, where I am observing the situation without any judgment. That's a practice, and that's a very difficult practice, because as humans we are constantly so used to having an opinion about everything, or
Right.
constantly judging, so
And
training
judging
yourself.
ourselves more than anybody else, right?
Of course, I think we've made it like a norm, like we have to do it, otherwise we cannot get better, which is sad
Yeah.
also, because it doesn't leave any room for compassion, for kindness. That's actually, according to research, a huge motivator to do things, to perform better. But we see as self criticism, which we also call it like a negative motivator, to be to be strong enough to motivate us to go and act. But again, it's a short lived thing,
Yeah.
because how much are you going to criticize and feel better in that criticism? It's not something that's helpful. So, like you spoke about, practices. I think one thing is stillness, which is the most difficult thing. But if you can master that, of just staying still and letting that emotion pass, I read somewhere that every emotion has a shelf life of 9 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
Stay with it. It's going to leave, but those 9 minutes can feel like 9 hours, or can feel like 9 weeks in that moment. But stay with it. It's going to pass. And that's helpful. If you can practice that, that's helpful for any situation. Learning to even diffuse from or detach yourself from the story that your mind is telling yourself, that monkey is constantly playing in the mind, it's not able to stay still. That story, you'll at least that story will stop ruling your life.
Very
So
interesting.
number one, notice, observe without judgment. Second is label it. Let the emotional brain calm down so that the rational brain can speak, right? Breathing really, really helps. So do some breathing, especially when you're too stressed. You have a double sigh where you breathe twice and release it. Or sometimes, even normally, when you're breathing, make sure that your release of or your exhalation is way longer than your inhalation. That helps with your stress release. That's another thing. Or talk to someone who can bring that better energy in you. Rather than going into these deep practices, is there someone to begin with who can help you with it? Just having a conversation with a friend can just create a lighter mood where you're like, Arey, it's okay, I don't need to pay so much attention. It's a small, trivial thing. As simple as that, or journal about it.
Right.
Because if it's something really strong that you want to address, write about it. When you write about it on a new day, or on another day, or in a few days, when you open it back and you look at it, you're looking at it with a fresh mind, with fresh eyes, and with a better perspective, and you yourself will find the answers to uh, the problem or the stressful situation that you feel that needs resolution.
Very interesting. You said few things right now, that just stay still and all of that. And I'll share my own personal experience. Sometimes these podcasts becomes my own self therapy, right? When I listen to my guest out there, I've been trying to make certain life choices right now at the stage of life I am in, at the stage of career I am in, and the monkey mind kind of made me wanting to push
Hmm.
me in a certain direction, right? And I was like, why is that emotion? Why is my mind telling me go there, right? When
Hmm.
I'm resisting it, that I don't want to go there, right? And it kind of had that thoughts about whether am I fearing a case of failure, or am I fearing a case of dejection that I was not able to get there, and that's why my mind is saying no, no, you should keep doing, you should do what you continue to do, versus a path which I want to take, which kind of helps me prioritize my health, helps me prioritize my family, helps me prioritize my work, which is the path I want to take, right? So in that context, I have been through this exercise, and the only thing which helped, and which I'm not a student of psychology, is just staying still. I did have an opportunity of staying still, and when I say staying still, not that I was sleeping, but
Hmm.
I was just there sitting
Yeah.
quiet, right?
Yeah.
Not doing anything. Sometimes we have lost the art of gazing in far and wide. Today, with a lot of screens around us, we don't have that opportunity of uh, n- wasting our time. Sometimes wasting our time helps us learn a lot about ourselves, and help us be that moment, just be still in that moment and not do anything, right? It may be just gazing a fan or gazing trees, right? You don't have to go out of your house and be on a beach and gaze out in the ocean, right, to have these practices. And that's why the reason why I'm bringing this out is because it helps. To your
Yeah.
point, stillness helps, or not doing anything, wasting your time, gets you clarity in your thought, what you really want to do and you shouldn't be doing. All these emotions which were playing up in your mind, they, like you said, but this 9-minute rule is an interesting thing. I should probably put timers now, to kind of, if something I'm going through, or people who are listening in, if they are going through, just put a 9-minute timer and let it pass through when these emotions run up. But building on to what you just said, it's not easy.
Hmm.
How do you practice?
So I'll tell you something that I do with my clients. Same thing, worrying, constantly worrying, 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 and that worrying consumes you. It
Hmm.
exhausts you. Sometimes we are so worried that we end up not doing our regular things, and like my job, I'm not able to pay attention to it. Ghar pe, whatever is happening, I'm not able to, fully give my time to the people around me, and the worry keeps you exhausted. So what I have done is told them, तुम्हारे calendar पे, on your calendar, put a slot of 30 minutes worry time. That's the only time you are going to worry. Okay?
Interesting.
So because what happens is at night when it's quiet, we don't have control. Our thoughts are going to keep coming, maybe about the day, maybe about a past experience, or we are trying to dissect that problem. Ki, why did it happen? Why did this person say this to me? I should have done this. I should have done. Everything comes at night,
Yeah.
because it's quiet before you're going to sleep, usually. So what I tell them is, hey, you know what? Let's put a worry time. You worry only in that time. So today, out of that time zone, if out of that time that I've kept for myself to worry, if I'm going to worry, I'm going to tell myself, hey, I have kept a slot. No, I'll worry then. So today, if I've kept my slot, say at 11 to 11:30 to worry, and if I have any thoughts that are keeping me anxious or engaged or constantly worried, constantly keeping me in worry, say at 5 p.m., I'll be like, hey, I have time tomorrow 11 a.m. I'm going to do it then. So I'm not going to write about it, nothing. But I'll just let it pass, continue to do my other things. Or if it's really bothering me, just write a word or two about that so that I remember it. And next day I'll worry. You'll realize that you've forgotten it.
Hmm.
You have forgotten what I'm worrying about, unless it's really important. So you use that time to actually bring out a solution for yourself. You use that time to actually maybe challenge your thoughts that are not allowing you to move beyond that point. Like, what's scaring you so much? Ask those important questions to yourself during that time, but not out of context.
Very
So
interesting.
that actually helps them to actually to understand that, hey, There are way too many things that I'm worrying about, which actually are not helping me, but are just consuming me. But at the same time, when there's something that is really worrisome that I need to address, I'm getting that time, dedicated time to do it without any distraction. So I don't have to do two things. It's not that I'm working and I'm finding a solution, I'm just finding a solution for that. So that gives you better clarity of thought, that gives you better perspective because you are free from everything else and you're just doing that. So that is something that I have noticed that has really, really helped the people I have been working with to have that dedicated time to use for worry.
Very interesting. I want to switch gears and I want to ask you a very personal question. You come across many people who have challenges, issues, a lot of that. And either hearing them or the energies they carry or the aura they carry would impact you as well. How do you stay stable? How do you stay sane, right? Because it can impact you. Like you said, worrying, you may be worrying, yeah, what that person is going through. Shit, I didn't even realize that, as an example. Or, somebody's negative energy impacts your energy levels. So, how do you balance yourself through this entire process and through these years?
Uh, well, that's a very interesting question. I think that rarely people ask psychologists that, hey, what do you do? You're dealing with so much of, you're helping people with their emotional baggage. Like, does it kind of come in the way? So, at times it does because we do have our own triggers. So there are times with certain stories that really activate a trigger
Hmm.
in us also, and we are taught to also compartmentalize that and put it in a container and maybe address it later. I think what helps psychologists also, what I personally do is you seek help too. Have a psychologist for has a have a therapist for yourself. You have enough problems in your life also. As
Right.
also to add on, you are in a job which is emotionally draining,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm having, say, 5 clients I'm working with in a day, everyone's story is different. I have to be very present in that moment and I have to be a listener to in that session to help my client. So yes, all my resources are put forward over there for to help the person in front of me. So it is depleting me also, which is why we stop after a point, right? Say 3 sessions max. Sometimes you can just take 3 sessions max. You can't take 5 sessions. There are some days you can take 4 sessions, right? So what is your self-care routine? What are you doing? Because psychologists too get burnt out,
Yeah.
and right now there are way too many say apps or new startups that have come, and which is quick money for psychologists also, to earn. So you tend to go overboard with that without realizing that, hey, I'm moving closer towards burnout, and I'm not going to have the next few months to earn that money because I'm so desperate to earn that money also. That's a different problem right now the
Right.
younger professionals are also experiencing. So I feel number one thing is you need to have a therapist. I find it difficult to trust therapists who don't have therapists.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because
So you have therapists?
well, of course,
Okay.
of course, we all do from time to time. Okay, and
Hmm.
I think it's only healthy and normal to have that. But sometimes it could be, okay, you're a therapist, how can you have? Ari, but I'm human also, right? I have my own
Right.
life also, and I have my own set of issues that I struggle with. My job trains me to be objective enough in a situation and not be emotionally involved with the client.
Right.
But in my context, in my problem, I am the client in my life. I am going
Right.
through it, I'm experiencing it. I'm not at a distance looking at my problem, right? And I may have many blind spots. Yes, my awareness definitely helps. My knowledge in my field definitely helps to dissect the problem, understand, but still you have some blind spots. Still, you need that space to just be and vent.
Yeah.
So, you need a therapist also. At the same time, you also need a self care routine
Hmm.
because it's possible for you to burn yourself out if you don't structure your work well enough, or if you don't understand your bandwidth when it comes to working,
Very
or if
interesting.
you're not very uh, if you're not very aware as to how much can you hold,
Hmm.
with your work also, because as people in, say, private practice, or having your own setup, you have to be the business person, you have to be the marketing person, you have to be a therapist. So it's like all roles, and you're not trained for all those roles also. So
Hmm.
you, at some point, your job definitely exhausts you also. So but what do you do to balance it? Is your nutrition in place, at place? Is your self-care routine at place? What are you doing to nourish your relationships in your life? Are you taking time out? Are you going for vacations? That is something that really helps, matters. And are you seeking help when you really need to? Being a professional in the field, are you seeking help? It's important that you do that, because that helps you take care of your issues, so that they don't get leaked into the work that you're doing with your clients.
Very interesting. Uh, hearing you, it almost feels like and I would like to compliment you, here that it's like a old soul in a young body, right? I see that in you, Nicole, a lot. So, and you know I know I've taken a lot of your time. I know how busy you are. So thank you for taking time out today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, and some amazing insights. I'm definitely going to, as a parent, as an individual, as a work athlete, I would use that word. I'm going to practice. I would just say, one thing which you all should stop calling yourselves therapists, because that will remove the mind block which many people have, and start calling yourself CEO, chief emotion officers.
Hmm.
uh, right. I've actually
Interesting.
printed a t-shirt. I
Love
wear
it.
that at work. I say I'm a CEO, right? Although I'm not a CEO of the company, but I say I'm a CEO. I manage a lot of people's emotions today, as a profession, because a lot of people come and speak to me, and the challenges so I call myself a CEO, chief emotions officer, right? Because I often joke with my team, I manage a lot of princesses and a lot of queens and kings, right? So I have to manage their emotions every day. So yeah, on that note, thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Anis. I actually enjoyed having this conversation with you. I think your questions were very interesting, and I didn't realize actually how the time passed. So I definitely had a great chat with you today.
Thank you for your time.